Hi, this is Kelly Borsheim. I'm a painter and a sculptor, and I'm going to talk to you today about giving myself a critique about my painting that on the 12th of March, I decided a name came to me called Signs from Above. I don't know if it'll stay or not, but it's unusual for me to get a title early on that I actually feel like says what I'm trying to say, maybe. So anyway, stay tuned, and I'm going to explain to you what I've been working on. And let's go. So you can see here, I don't know if you can see here or not, that there's a little bit of warble in this canvas that you can see I did not actually mount it properly. And that's because I know that this painting is going to be rolled up at some point and taken with the stretcher bars, probably the same ones, maybe not, depends. But I don't like the wave in the canvas and it's starting to bother me. And you know my rule, worst first. So if something bothers you that it's taking away your focus and your concentration on whatever you want to do, go take care of it. Whether it's food, sex, sleep, whatever, go take care of it. And in this case, I will be stretching this. Now, it was in March that I ended up having to go to Florence to help out a friend take care of a little boy while she had to be in a hospital. So I left this with a lot of oil paint, sort of oiling in things, because I know that black and your umbers are going to suck in a lot of oil. And so I wanted to get kind of a consistent thing going on here. And you can maybe see, I'm not sure about the glare there, but maybe you can see that some parts have done it. This right here is sunken in, meaning that I applied new paint because the hair was too far out. And I wanted to rein in my shapes and get the shapes accurate again. So I have some of that stuff. When we call it sunken in, what it's doing is the paint I put on top is pulling out the oil that was already in the painting. And you know, that'll be okay. Anyway, this is going forward. Last night was the first time in a long time that I have gotten to work with this piece. And I decided that before I add the dragonflies that are making the signs from above, I want to get her as perfectly finished as I feel like I want to. So part of the reason is because later when I decide where to put these dragonflies around that are swirling above her head, I want to make sure that I don't feel that I have to move them from the positions I want them because I didn't do the painting underneath very well, okay? And if I can, I want to have some of this to be fairly dry before I add in the new thing, because they're going to have transparent wings. I'm going to have, you know, a little bit of light hitting them and that kind of thing. So anyway, was working on the face yesterday. My art student is arriving in about an hour, and I wanted to explain to her some of the problems that I have here before I fix them, so I can use my current painting that I'm doing for my own work to be something that can show her a real example of something that I'm doing. So anyway, here, my first reaction when I woke up this morning was, oh my gosh, she's got such dark raccoon eyes. But to be honest, this photo over here, that is what I'm working on. That's something I took many, many years ago when I worked with this model, Julia, in Texas. And that was my first impression looking at these, is wow, she's got dark on top and bottom. And so nothing wrong with that, it's just a look. But for me, who hardly ever wears anything, and I do wear mascara, but I always pull it in the back because my eyes are close together. And now that I'm getting older, I don't even know if I want such high contrast. Maybe I do, I don't know. I haven't figured out the beauty stuff. Anyway, I'm getting some of this, and then last night, I don't know why it took me long to see this, but this is one of the things that I teach, is that the problem, this is why I do worse first, is because you get that fresh look and you go, what instantly hit me that's not working well? Because when you have a mistake, I say mistake, now I'm talking about the idea of painting what you see. Realism or not realism, it could be a totally abstract, just a bunch of shapes. But when you come into the room and see it for the first time, especially if you've been away for a while, or if you take a photo of it and look at it this big, you can really see when the shapes are not working, and you might go, oh, something, you know. So like I said, you're the artist, you're the boss. That's the way I teach when I teach children's sculpture as well, and painting. But you have to decide whether you like something or don't. And if it bothers you because you have to think about how you feel and it's better again to get this distance, then go fix that. Don't worry what anybody else is going to think. Don't worry about whether it's proper proportion or not. It's what you have inside of you that you're trying to communicate in the language that artists, visual artists have of shape, tone, line, color, texture, those kind of things. That's our alphabet, okay? So I realized at some point, and I don't know why, I just think, I don't know, I think I have too much stuff in my head. I had the nose going vertical. Why would the nose go vertical? Her face, you can see her eyes are not horizontal. You can see the corners of her mouth are not horizontal, okay? And I had, first of all, I had the nose too slender because really in my photo, it kind of washes out a lot of information. And I'm sort of doing that on purpose because I don't want to be photorealistic. So I want to use a smaller version, use my vision, but also my anatomy, but also I want it designed. I don't want it copied, okay? That's a kind of a hard concept when you're working from photographs to do that. But there are some things in here that are not accurate. If I were to take that and enlarge it to exactly this proportion, sure, I could see things that I've done differently. But I'm not interested in doing that. So, and I don't know about you, but I can tell you that a lot of times in my life, well-intentioned people have said, but you have to do this and go there and go there and go there. And finally and why are you resisting me? I tell you to do this and you do that. And I say, well, because you're trying to go to point B, I'm trying to go to point A. I was never trying to take the road you want me to take. So that's why you're getting frustrated, because you're insisting that I do this, and that was never my desire. So I just don't want a confrontation, and I'm just going to quietly do what I'm going to do. A lot of people are like that. They don't like confrontation. But, you know, I learned as a supervisor when I worked at Stokes Imaging Services doing duplication of slides, and then I was doing preservation work and stuff. I wanted to train all of the employees in my department how to do each one of the jobs in the steps that we had to do. One was a cameraman, another was the printer, another was the person that did the quality check. I wanted every person to know that, not just because if one person gets sick and we only had one person to do the job, it would totally shut down the department, but also because if you know the entire process and you find yourself at a fork in the road, then you know what your goal is, and so you can make a decision even if the boss or the teacher or whatever it is you're sort of thinking you're following you're gonna know how to navigate that even when you don't really know how to navigate it. You know what I mean? Say yes in the comments if so. Tell me no, I'm nuts if not. That's all good. Anyhow, so I realized that I had my nose vertical and it wasn't working. So I moved it a little bit here and was still trying to keep the shapes, because what I like is you basically in this one, you see the highlight hitting the very edge of her nose going, you know, in a line, but it's not going to be a line. This between the light, strong light hitting her face here and the shadow, oops, I didn't mean to touch that. The paint's still wet. Anyway, yeah, so there's going to be a transition, even though the lighting is really, really severe. You can see this from there. In fact, one of the first corrections that I needed to make last night was that her forehead was too much of this light here. And so if you squinting is really good because it condenses the tone. It helps you determine what's really light, what's really dark. So even though her forehead is much lighter than the darker cheek area, it's still, from this point, you know, there's the plane of the temple. This side is getting more light. The front part here is getting light, but not as much because it's not facing the light source coming more from the side. So we have the shape of the skull, you know, so the light hits here and it's going to hit softer here. And then as it goes away, you're going to have the temple here that's not seeing as much light. You don't see that here because her hair covers it, but the form is still there. And I need to make this dark here so that you know it's going, this part of the hair here is actually falling down a vertical plane on the side of her skull, okay? So there's a lot of these little things that I have to do. You see this little bit of hair right here that has the light? I've sort of copied that, but it's not believable. So I'm not working on the hair yet, but I need to make it so that this is on the top of the head and this part falls down on the head, and then just this little bit here falls forward above her in front of her eye, just enough so that it catches this light here. And that's what I'm going to work on to make it believable. Part of it is also I need to make this a little bit darker so that when this part falls in front, you see that. I need the back of the head, I need that to be a little bit darker as well. And maybe I've got too much dark right up in here, and you need to have a little bit more light going dark as I go towards the back of the head. This light source that looks like it's coming from, you know, look at the strongest light hitting her cheek, and it falls away when it gets a little bit to her chin. But even this I have a little bit too exaggerated, because I was trying to add some dark in to get the lower part of her cheek here, which is not going to get the same light as the upper part. So it's quite subtle, plus I'm using these colors that are not normal even for me, but I like them. So another critique I have of the face, which, let me see if I can zoom in, hang on. I'll show you the model as well, because you don't need to see me, but to see the thing I'm working from. Oh, stay, please stay. It's too heavy, it looks like. We'll put that, tilt that back a little bit. May have to crop that out, who knows. Come on, stay in the same place, would you? Good grief. Okay, here we go. Sorry about my live video thing. All right, so I'm trying to zoom in here. Now, last night before I went to bed, I do like to sort of, you know, drink my little hot chocolate or whatever I'm going to drink, and kind of take a moment to be calm, because it's like, you know, everybody knows when you get in the shower, or if you're sort of laying in bed a little bit too long, or if you take a nap and wake up, that's when the ideas come, because your brain has to have all of the information that you've given it, all the input, and then it needs to sort of just relax and let everything sort of fall into its puzzle pieces. So that's what I like to do. I like to do that before I go to sleep, because what I'm doing is putting a question in my head. What is it that's bothering me? Or what's the answer to this question? And I usually ask a specific question. So I don't like this mouth here, because I feel as though when I look at the mouth there, she's got a fuller lip down at the bottom. I'm getting a nice little curve here at the corner that goes this way. I don't know if you can see that or not. But I want the lip full, but also remember the mouth is going this way. So the full lip, you've got two muscles here basically, and then one in the center that they both kind of have individual ball shapes inside of the lip of the curve of the mouth. So it's not just the color difference. I only have pretty much a purple on the top, and I love this red. This red, even, I don't know if she's got a lipstick or not. I don't remember, and I didn't want to do a color printout of this. But I love this pop of orange here, same way I love it there. I don't know if that's going to stay there or not, but the more it stays there, the more likely my brain is going to accept that as normal. And this is what I was talking about mistakes earlier, and I probably forgot to finish the thought. If you leave a mistake for a very long time, it was something that bothered you, and then later it doesn't, it may be that you've changed a lot of other things all around it, and all of a sudden that one part makes sense again to you, and it's not a problem. Or it could be that your brain just got used to looking at it, and so it's decided that's my new normal, and that's okay. In reality, I believe any decision that you make with your art, whether it's not to do something or to do something, to change something or to let it go, that's your voice, that's your decision, that's everything. Because in the end, if it's something that bothered you and you didn't change it, you're gonna have to live with that forever. So I hope that you're gonna, you know, I'm saying that, but I also say everything is true, and that's because there's a context to everything. So I recently had a friend tell me that I don't know anything because how can I believe everything? I was just like, literal thinking, everything is true based on what context you're putting it in, and also which point of view you're sharing those things. So from my point of view, I am who I am. I'm going to make this the way it makes me feel happy. It makes me feel like I've communicated what I wanted to communicate. I learned what I wanted to learn, because to me that's one of the most important things. And I did this new thing that I'd not done before. So somebody else may come along and go, well, why didn't you paint her dress or body? I don't even see any difference in the lower and the higher part. And where's the movement of tone that you always talk about and all that kind of stuff? I'm the artist, I'm the boss. So a different person will have a different experience. So anyway, enough with the lecture. Get on back to here. I'm trying to figure out the dark of this. It's going to roll into a little bit lighter again because the form is coming back out to make the round up cheeks. And then I'm going to have this little transition here of the bone. There, you know, there's another little kind of two-thing bone there. That's why some people have a dimple there. Because this line here was too harsh last night. In fact, you'll see that I darkened this line of the jaw separating from the chest. I don't really see it in the photo there. If I squint, I can see an indication of it. And part of our brain knows that if I draw this and I draw this, we recognize that the jaw is going to continue like that because we recognize faces, you know. So those are all things that work in it. I actually maybe I liked the eyes better. I felt like they were actually looking at me when I looked at them. They're not now. This one's actually looking up high. And when you do eyes, they're very, very difficult. But also, if you're painting a portrait of somebody, the eyes are going to be the most important thing to do. So what I like to do is stand back, distance. I'll cover one eye and look. What am I saying? I'm not covering my eyes. I'm going to cover one eye. Where's she looking? And then I'm going to cover this eye. Where's she looking? If they're not looking in the same place, it better be because something I wanted to communicate with a person who does have eyes like that, okay? Otherwise, I need to figure out which of the two eyes is looking where I want it to go. And if neither one of them is, then fix one of them and match the other one to it. So there's that. But when I get really tired and with this spine of mine, when I get really pained and stuff, I can't think anymore. So I know, okay, I have to give this a rest. And that's where I was about 2 o'clock in the morning last night. And I thought, just let this kind of dry, because I also have this way too dark in here. She does have very dark stuff in there. And even here, but even here, I still feel like it's a little bit too dark and contrasty. I do want you to look at her eyes first. So if I want that, it's the point, high contrast. There's the dark, there's the light. That's the highest point of contrast in the whole painting. So your eye is naturally going to go there first, okay? But that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to be obvious about it. And I was also trying really hard to work on making things with a soft edge and putting in a little color at the transition. Here's blue here, here's blue here. The eyes were blue, and last night I was painting purple, but I was trying to leave the blue showing in pieces and trying to keep the edge soft and all that kind of stuff. So there's that. I think today I'm going to let this stuff dry just a little bit more, although I can tell you the nose here has almost exactly the same color going up in this side. Because it's the light side of the face, one could justify and say, well, it's really washed out because there's a lot of light hitting it. You're not going to see it. But I feel like even in the photo, there's a slight darkening of the plane right here because it's coming at you and it's a different plane from this. So if the light was coming equally between the two sides, they might be equally lit and you can get away with it. But I want to work with subtlety because I'm not really that subtle of a person. So, and I want to try to learn to be more subtle with my stuff. But also, I've been trying to put in color here. So it could be that I don't change the tone of the section here in light, but I don't need it to be all this sort of gray purple that's going on, okay? So I may put in a splash of more of this yellow or of the orange or something. So anyway, getting back to these lips, I was trying to soften the line above this. this section here. And I like that this is orange, especially because it's on the dark side and it's quite colorful and powerful. But I also want to figure out how to balance this stuff. But I may, if I look at how the face is going here, it's going to be curving down, you know, around her mouth. But I'm not convinced that I have the shape of the mouth quite right. But I really like that she's got a full lip at the bottom. You don't see the fullness in the top lip as much because of the angle of you looking down at her like this. But a lot of people don't actually have equally thick lips. This is a side note, and maybe you're not interested in this kind of thing, but many years ago, I thought it would be really cool to study what different positions of the face muscles mean emotion-wise. Partly because I was kind of curious to study how do caricature artists get such expression into the faces, you know, and so it was kind of a thing of, can I go from the backwards thing and say, well, if I want to create a menacing figure, he's angry, I'm going to do the eye muscles here, he's going to be squinting a little bit, you know, that kind of thing. Do I want to do somebody in surprise? Do I want to do somebody sad? Do I want to make a face that's full of confusion? The muscles make these faces, these expressions that we do, and I thought maybe I could study that so that when I wanted to create from fantasy a face that's doing or thinking something specific, maybe I can figure out how to do that. So one of the funny things that I heard was when you look at the language of the shape of the body to describe a personality, okay? The top lip represents your need to give love. And the bottom lip represents your need to receive love or attention or compliments or whatever. So I found that interesting because a lot of people don't have equal lips. In fact, it's rare to find somebody that has a big upper lip and a skinny bottom lip. But it's not really so rare to find people having a thin upper lip and a big fuller lower lip. I don't know enough people that well to know whether this rule fits in them or not, but I find it interesting because for me, anytime I hear a fact that somebody presents me as this is the way it is, I don't really accept a lot of things. I believe everything is true, but I also believe that to be in context, and you use that truth at a certain point to help you go forward with something. But I don't believe that just because somebody makes a statement that this is this way, you can always eat spinach and get good fiber and good vitamins. That's not always true. So everything is contextual. And it's that I find interesting, is that when somebody states, well, this is the way it is, my brain says, are you sure? So I usually have a lot more questions generated when somebody states something as an absolute, okay? I don't know. Maybe it's one of my defects. You decide. I don't know. I'm happy with that. I actually prefer to have more questions than answers. So anyway, this is what I'm working on here. And as I said, I want to put in dark here because even though I see a little bit of purple and less light here, I don't really feel I have the form yet on the hair. So that's what I'm going to be working on next. And this stuff too. And this stuff, it's just too parallel for my taste. And so I want to kind of loosen this up a little bit. And it may be that I also need to come in and put some more darks. You see how she's got these come in and do that. But since I see that this has sunken in and become dull, basically, that's how you know it's sucking in the oil. It's absorbed the oil and now you don't see as much of it there. But actually, maybe it's the... Wait a minute, I might have that backwards because I have dyslexia. It could be that the layer underneath didn't have the oil. So then when I added the paint with more oil in it, the paint underneath sucked the oil out. That makes more sense, doesn't it? Sucked the oil out of the top layer and it dulled, it took the oil out of the color that's laying on top. That may make more sense, but I may have to look that up. So, or you can, because like I said, I have dyslexia sometimes and I change things around. And it's a perk at sometimes, but sometimes it's really frustrating because I kind of remember the concept, or I remember there is a situation that I need to be aware of, but I forget it. So that's my admission, and I'm sticking to it. So, all right. I'm going to work on this later today. I'm going to develop this hand because I laid in some of this stuff before I went to take care of this kid. And I got the basics in, but I want to develop it so it's a little finished. Also, you can see this hip and the foot. The foot is further away from the light source, and it's also kind of behind her figure on the shadow side. So this needs to be darker. Even this highlight that I have here, this also needs to be darker, because the light hitting this leg, for example, it's not the same as the light hitting the face. So that tells you that the light is higher up, the leg is further, so that if you measure this distance compared to this distance, for an example, to help you learn to study how light falls. Because if you even want to paint a landscape and you want to change whatever you see, maybe you're doing it in plein air and your son is traveling and you go, but I really love that morning light. So if I didn't take a picture of it, because even that's not going to work all the time, you can say, well, logically, I knew that the sun was over here in the morning and I want to pull it over this way. Well, stuff that's closer is going to be brighter, more influenced by that. You're going to see more. If I have grasses down here and something light up here, like a light box or a car or something, this light is closer, it's going to bounce some of that green from the grass into the white car, okay? When I get further away, that difference is going to be much, much smaller, much less dramatic. And I know that if I have grasses hitting up here that are catching a little bit of those morning rays, it's going to hit on the top. But because it's so much further away, it's not going to be as bright as the grasses that are going to hit it here. So this is the kind of thing that you want to think about when you're constructing your design, okay? So please leave your questions. If you like this content, let me know. Like, subscribe to my channel if you wish. Make a comment, please. And I don't have any problem with anybody saying, oh, fix this, because as I said, I read everything. I listen to everything everybody says to me, and then I pretty much decide what is it I want to do, and then I throw away the other stuff and say, okay, this stuff can help me. I can go forward with this. So anyway, I don't crucify people anyway just because they think differently than I do, and I actually prefer dialogue from different points of view, because there's a lot of things I haven't experienced in my life, and maybe you have, and you can share those, and I can share my weird experiences, and then we all learn something new, and maybe our life is a little more interesting. So thanks for watching, and I'm gonna get painting before she arrives in about 15 minutes. Today is April 8th, so yeah, my title of my painting came to me a month ago, but as I said, it lets you know a little bit about how long it's taken. There's still places that look wet to me in the paint that I did on the background. So that's good information for me to have, because I don't want to roll this painting up too soon whenever I do get it finished. And that means I need to put the fire under the bomb and get painting. Ciao for now. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time.